All right, so you're thinking about studying in the UK, huh? In
Ah.
2025. That's awesome.
Hmm.
But I totally get it. You've probably got like a mountain of guides and rankings and articles and like it's information overload, right?
Absolutely, it can be a lot to
Yeah,
process.
for sure. So that's where we come in, right? With this deep dive,
Yeah.
we're going to cut through all the noise and try to figure out what really matters for your UK adventure.
Exactly. We're here to help you turn all that information overload into informed decisions about your future in the UK.
Okay, perfect. So let's unpack this. First things first. Why the UK?
Yeah.
What makes it, I don't know, like so special in a world that's literally bursting with study abroad options?
Well, imagine this, you graduate and you have a degree that's basically a passport to global opportunities. That's the power of a UK education, I think.
Okay.
The UK has a long history of academic excellence.
Mm.
And they're really serious about quality control, too. They have bodies like the Office for Students and the Quality Assurance Agency, making sure that universities are meeting these incredibly high standards.
Okay, so it's not just about a fancy name on your resume.
Exactly. It's about knowing you've developed skills that are actually valued worldwide.
Okay, I'm already picturing myself landing like an amazing job somewhere exotic and being like, "Oh yeah, I studied in the UK," like no big deal.
Small chuckle.
But let's be real, those tuition fees can be a little intimidating.
Yes, they can be.
Yeah. So, like for someone who, I don't know, who isn't made of money, is it even realistic to think about studying in the UK?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
That's a very valid concern, but don't panic just yet.
Okay.
While UK tuition can be on the higher side, especially for international students, it's important to look at the bigger picture.
Okay. Yeah.
So for starters, many UK master's programs are shorter than in other countries, so you might be paying more per year, but for fewer years overall.
Okay, that makes sense.
And plus, there's a huge range of program costs. We found one online master's that's only £540 a year.
Wait, hold up. Did you say 540 pounds for an entire year?
Yeah.
That's less than I spent on coffee in a month.
Small chuckle.
Okay, I am officially intrigued. But before we get too carried away with budgeting tips, let's talk learning styles. Because I've heard that, the UK system is all about independent learning. What's the deal with that? What does that actually mean?
So it's less about being kind of passively absorbing information
Right.
and more about taking ownership of your education. So you're given the tools and guidance, but you're expected to kind of build your own understanding, think critically, and form your own conclusions.
Got it. So it's less about being handed the answers
Exactly.
and more about figuring things out for yourself.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. But before we dive into the academic side of things, can we talk about culture shock for a minute? Because I have to admit, I'm guilty of having those like stereotypical images of the UK in my head. Relentless politeness, constant rain. Is British food really as bad as everyone says?
Small chuckle.
Yeah.
Well, let's unpack those stereotypes a bit. It's true. The UK is known for its politeness.
Right.
But it's not all, stiff upper lips and tea parties. Remember, we talked about that diversity. The UK is actually 4 unique cultures all woven into one incredible tapestry. You've got England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland.
Oh, right. Yeah, I always forget about that. It's not just England.
Exactly. And each one has its own vibe, its own traditions, even its own accents.
Right. Okay, yeah.
And then you've got cities like London, which are these incredible global melting pots with, did you know, over 300 languages spoken.
Wow, 300 languages. That's mind-blowing.
Huh.
Okay, I need to seriously update my mental image of the UK. But okay, let's be honest. No amount of cultural diversity can fully compensate for dreary weather, right?
Yeah.
How much rain are we really talking about here?
Small chuckle.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. The UK does have a reputation for rain. It's an island, after all. But honestly, it's not constant drizzle. You can expect temperatures, generally between 10 and 20 degrees Celsius throughout the year. Warmest summers are in the southeast.
Okay, so maybe pack an umbrella or two just in case. But now, on to the big decision. Choosing a university. There are so many options, it's totally paralyzing. Where do you even begin to narrow it down?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to kind of, figure out what kind of university experience you are really looking for. So first, the environment. Do you thrive in a big city with lots of energy like London, or do you prefer something a bit quieter and more historic like Bath?
Right. Okay, so big city buzz versus cozy historic vibes.
Exactly. And then think about the university itself. Are you drawn to the prestige of a top-ranked university like, Oxford or Cambridge? Or are you more interested in finding a place with, a particular program that's perfect for you, or maybe a university that's known for its supportive learning environment.
Okay, so prestige versus perfect program fit. Got it. But how do you really know what a university's like? Because the brochures all look so polished and perfect.
That's where student reviews come in. They'll give you the unfiltered truth, straight from the people who have actually been there.
Right, so it's like getting the inside scoop.
Exactly, the inside scoop.
Okay, love it. So we've talked about why the UK, the cost, and how to maybe make it work, and we've even started to figure out where you might want to be. But now I really want to come back to that whole independent learning thing. Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
It's like this. Instead of just listening to lectures and memorizing facts, you're encouraged to think for yourself. It's about developing your own ideas and being able to back them up.
So it's not just about absorbing information. It's about, like, actively processing it, right?
Exactly. It's about asking questions, debating ideas, and coming to your own conclusions.
Okay, so it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
But for the right kind of learner, it sounds pretty amazing. So now that we've covered the academic side of things,
Well,
let's talk about the practicalities. What about student housing? Is it all dorms? Or can you venture out into the, I don't know, the wild world of off-campus living?
it's a classic dilemma. On-campus housing, it's usually called halls of residence. It gives you that, kind of immersive student experience. You're surrounded by your peers. There's a built-in social life, and usually most of your utilities are included.
Okay, so it's convenient.
Yeah, exactly. Convenient, but you're often sharing spaces and privacy can be limited. Off-campus, on the other hand, gives you more independence. You can find a place that really feels like yours, but it usually comes with a higher price tag and more responsibility. You'll be managing bills, dealing with landlords, that kind of thing.
So on campus for community and convenience.
Yeah.
Off campus for freedom and maybe like peace and quiet. Okay, decisions. But hold on, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Visas. Can you even work while you're studying in the UK? Asking for a friend who, hypothetically, might have a slight obsession with fish and chips and might need to fund that habit.
Small chuckle. Well, good news for your fish and chips loving friend. You can work while studying in the UK, but there are limits. Most student visas allow for 20 hours of paid work per week during term time
Okay,
and full-time during holidays.
got it. So definitely not a work all you want situation.
No.
Got to prioritize those studies. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, but a part-time job could definitely help with like the essentials, rent and, fish and chips.
No.
Speaking of which, let's talk about life beyond academics. What's the UK really like? I'm picturing a land of, I don't know, relentless politeness, constant drizzle, and is British food really as bad as everyone says?
Okay, let's unpack those stereotypes again.
Yeah.
Yes, the UK is known for its politeness. It's true. Right.
But it's not all, stiff upper lips and tea parties.
Right.
And remember, 300 languages spoken in London.
Right.
That diversity extends to every aspect of life, including the food. You'll find incredible global cuisine, and yes, even amazing traditional British dishes that go way beyond the stereotypes.
Okay, I'm willing to give British cuisine a chance. But I have to ask, what about those accents? Will I even be able to understand what people are saying?
British accents can definitely be a bit of a challenge at first, but don't worry, you'll get used to it. Think of it as part of the cultural immersion.
Right.
And hey, you might even pick up a bit of a British accent yourself.
Ooh, imagine coming back home with a charming British accent. Instant sophistication points. Okay, I'm starting to get really excited about this whole UK adventure, but let's be real. Moving to a new country, it can be overwhelming, even a country as, as cool as the UK. What can our listener expect those first few weeks? Any tips for minimizing culture shock?
The key is to be prepared for things to be different. Don't expect everything to be exactly like it is back home.
Right.
Embrace the differences. It's all part of the adventure. And remember, you're not alone. There are tons of other international students going through the same thing, so connect with them, share your experiences, support each other.
Okay, so be open-minded, connect with your fellow adventurers, and just embrace the ups and downs of this whole experience.
Got it. But before we move on, any final thoughts on this whole why UK question? What makes it truly stand out, as a study destination?
I think a UK education, it's more than just a degree, It's an experience that will shape you intellectually, personally, and culturally. It's about challenging yourself, broadening your horizons, and discovering, who you are.
I love that. So to our listener, we say, if you're looking for an education that will challenge you, inspire you, and prepare you for a global future, the UK might just be the perfect place.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So now let's move on to the practicalities of actually making this UK dream a reality. Buckle up, we're going deep into scholarships, visas, and all those kind of nitty-gritty details you need to know.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've covered like a ton of ground already.
We have.
But now it's time to talk about the thing that's probably like top of mind for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Money.
Money, money, money.
Exactly. We've established that UK tuition can be, well, a bit daunting, let's just say.
It can.
So let's dig into those scholarship opportunities. How can our listener potentially score some serious funding and make this UK dream a reality?
You're so right. Scholarships can be a total game changer. And the good news is there's a ton of funding available for international students in the UK.
Okay.
From full rides covering everything to smaller grants that'll help with specific expenses.
Okay, so there's hope for those of us who aren't, trust fund kids.
Absolutely.
But how do you even find these like elusive scholarships? Is it just a matter of like endless Googling and hoping for the best?
Thankfully, no, there's a more strategic approach.
Oh, yeah, good.
First, you've got to hit up Master's Portal.
Master's Portal.
Their database lists hundreds of scholarships specifically for studying in the UK. Then dive deep into your chosen university's websites.
Okay.
Many have dedicated scholarship pages listing opportunities both within the institution and from external organizations.
So Master's Portal and university websites. Check any other secret scholarship sources we should know about.
Don't forget about the British Council.
Oh yeah, the British Council.
They offer some really prestigious scholarships like the Chevening Scholarships for master's students and the Commonwealth Scholarships for both master's and PhD candidates.
Ooh, those are the big leagues. I'm already picturing our listener like giving an acceptance speech, thanking the British Council for making their dreams come true.
It could happen.
It could happen.
It's definitely worth aiming high, and if you're thinking about a PhD, you should check out Euraxes UK.
Euraxes.
They're a fantastic resource for funding opportunities, research networks, and even job vacancies at the doctoral level.
Okay, so many resources, so little time. But finding the right scholarship is only half the battle. What about the application process itself? Any tips for making our listeners' applications stand out from the crowd?
Okay, first things first, make sure you actually meet the eligibility criteria for each scholarship.
Right.
There's no point wasting time on applications that you don't qualify for.
Got to make sure you tick all those boxes.
Exactly. Then gather all the required documents, transcripts, letters of recommendation, proof of English proficiency, all that stuff.
Right.
Make sure it's all organized and ready to go. The last thing you want is to be scrambling for a missing transcript at the last minute.
Oh, yeah, that would be stressful. Organization is key. But what about the actual content of the application? What makes a scholarship application really shine?
This is where the motivation letter comes in.
Okay, the motivation letter.
This is your chance to really tell your story, showcase your passion, and explain why you deserve the scholarship.
Okay.
Be authentic, be compelling, and for goodness sake, proofread. A typo-ridden motivation letter isn't going to win anyone over.
Okay, no pressure.
Yeah.
Just write a flawless, stirring essay
Yeah.
that captures the essence of your academic brilliance.
Right.
Piece of cake.
Exactly. But remember, scholarships are investments. They're looking for people who are going to make a difference in the world. So let your passion shine through, and you'll be well on your way to impressing those scholarship committees.
I love that. Okay, we've officially demystified the scholarship process.
Okay.
But scholarships aside, let's talk about making the most of your time in the UK.
Oh.
We've already touched on the cultural diversity, but what are some must-do experiences for our listener who wants to really immerse themselves in British culture?
We talked about the amazing free museums.
Yes.
But the UK is also a music lover's paradise.
Oh, really?
From legendary venues like Wembley Stadium to cozy pubs hosting up-and-coming artists, you'll find live music for every genre imaginable.
So whether you're a die-hard rock fan or a jazz aficionado, the UK has got you covered. But what about those iconic landmarks and historical sites? What are some must-sees for our history buff listener?
Well, Stonehenge is a given.
Of course, Stonehenge.
But if you're fascinated by royal history, Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle are essential. And for literary history, a visit to Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare's birthplace, is like stepping back in time.
Okay, so I'm already picturing myself strolling through Stratford-upon-Avon, quoting Shakespeare and pretending I'm like a literary scholar.
Why not?
But what about for our listener who's more into modern history?
The UK has played a pivotal role in shaping the modern world of character. Explore the Churchill war rooms for a chilling glimpse into World War II, Or check out the Imperial War Museum, which documents conflicts throughout history.
So much history to uncover.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, no UK experience is complete without a proper pub crawl, right? What are your tips for navigating the world of pints and pub grub?
No, absolutely. You can't go wrong with a classic pint of ale or a gin and tonic if you're feeling fancy.
Okay.
And for food, you've got to try the classics fish and chips, bangers and mash, or a plowman's lunch, which is basically a platter of cheese, bread, and pickle.
Okay.
Don't worry, most pubs these days have great vegetarian and vegan options too.
Okay, so pub culture, essential check. But all this exploring can get expensive. Any tips for experiencing British culture on a shoestring budget?
The UK is actually full of free and low-cost activities. Parks and gardens offer free entry. Many cities have free walking tours, and keep an eye out for free outdoor movie screenings during the summer months.
Free walking tours and movie nights under the stars sounds right up my alley. But what about shopping? Is it even possible to shop in the UK without going bankrupt?
It definitely requires some strategy,
Okay.
but it can be done for vintage finds and unique treasures. Hit up the charity shops.
Charity shops.
They're basically secondhand stores that support charitable causes, so you can find amazing things for a fraction of the price, and it's good for the planet too.
Charity shops. I love it. Sustainable shopping and supporting good causes. What's not to love? But what if you're looking for more like mainstream brands and trends?
Primark is your best friend for trendy clothes at incredibly low prices, and if you're willing to venture outside the city center, you'll find outlet malls with great deals on designer brands.
Okay, so charity shops, Primark, and outlet malls. Got it. But what about those moments when you just need to like relax and recharge? Any quintessentially British activities you recommend?
For a truly relaxing experience, try a traditional afternoon tea at a cozy cafe.
Oh, afternoon tea.
It's surprisingly affordable, especially if you venture outside the tourist traps, and it's a lovely way to experience a cherished British tradition.
Afternoon tea check. But what about for our nature-loving listener, any relaxing outdoor activities you recommend?
The UK is a walker's paradise.
Okay.
There are trails and paths everywhere, from gentle rambles through rolling hills to challenging hikes up rugged mountains. The Lake District in England and the Scottish Highlands are particularly breathtaking.
So whether you're a seasoned hiker or a casual stroller, the UK has a path for you. But what about those moments when you just want to stay in and recharge? Any quintessentially British activities for a cozy night in?
Curling up on the sofa with a cup of tea and a classic British TV show is a must.
Okay, I'm listening.
For wit and social satire, Fawlty Towers is a classic for a modern take on British humor. Check out Fleabag. And for a good old-fashioned detective drama, you can't go wrong with Sherlock.
Adding those to my watch list. But what about for our adventurous listener who's always up for a challenge? Any slightly more daring activities you recommend?
If you're feeling brave, how about a dip in the chilly waters of the North Sea?
Oh, wow.
It's an invigorating experience, to say the least. Or for something a little less extreme, try a bike ride through the countryside. The UK has some stunning cycling routes.
North Sea dip for the brave souls, cycling through the countryside for the rest of us. But what about for those rainy days when you just want to stay inside? Any quintessentially British activities for when the weather's less than ideal?
A visit to a traditional British seaside town has a charm all its own, even on a rainy day. Or you could explore one of the UK's many historic castles, stately homes, or gardens. Imagine stepping back in time and experiencing a world of lords and ladies' banquets and balls.
Okay, I'm sold. Castles, stately homes, and gardens. It's like stepping into a Jane Austen novel, but all this exploring is making me hungry. We've already established that fish and chips is a must-try, but what other British culinary delights should our listener be adding to their foodie bucket list?
For the ultimate comfort food experience, you have to try a Sunday roast.
Sunday roast.
It's a hearty meal of roasted meat, or a vegetarian alternative, Yorkshire pudding, roasted vegetables, and gravy. It's pure British comfort food goodness.
Sunday roast noted, but what about for those times when you just need a quick and easy bite? Any quintessential British snacks we should recommend?
For a sweet treat, you can't go wrong with a classic Cadbury chocolate bar or a packet of biscuits. For something savory, try a pork pie, a snotch egg, or a packet of crisps.
Okay, so we've got our sweet treats and savory snacks sorted, but what about the most essential British beverage of all, tea? Any tips for brewing the perfect cuppa?
Ah, the art of tea making.
Yeah.
It's more than just boiling water and chucking in a tea bag first. Always use fresh water and bring it to a rolling boil. Then warm the teapot before adding the tea.
Okay.
Use 1 tea bag per person, add boiling water, and let it steep for 3 to 5 minutes depending on how strong you like it.
Okay. Warming the teapot, steeping time.
Okay.
Any other tea-making commandments I need to know?
This is an important one. Milk goes in after the tea, never before.
Okay.
It's basically a cardinal sin in the UK tea world.
Milk after the tea,
Yeah.
noted too. I wouldn't want to commit a tea-related faux pas. But tea aside, let's get back to the reason we're here studying tea board. We've talked about the independent learning style, but
Yeah.
what are some practical tips for actually thriving in a UK academic environment?
It's all about embracing a new way of thinking. You're not just there to absorb information, you're expected to actively engage with it, to think critically, to form your own opinions, and to contribute to class discussions.
So it's not about passively taking notes and regurgitating information on exams.
Well, not at all.
It's about becoming an active participant in the learning process.
Exactly. It can be daunting at first, but it's also incredibly empowering. You're not just being spoon-fed knowledge, you're discovering it for yourself.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal of this self-directed approach, but any practical tips for making the transition?
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay.
Your professors are there to guide you, and they genuinely appreciate curiosity and engagement.
Okay.
And make friends with the library. Independent research is a huge part of the UK academic experience.
Embrace the library, ask lots of questions, and be prepared to take ownership of your learning.
Got it.
But let's be honest, university life isn't all about academics.
Yeah.
What's the social scene like? I'm picturing those classic scenes from British university films, formal balls, secret societies, and maybe even a bit of Quidditch practice on the side.
While you might not find any Quidditch matches, there are tons of opportunities to find your people and pursue your passions. UK universities have a vibrant social scene with clubs and societies for every interest imaginable, from sports and music to politics and debating.
Okay.
And of course, there are always the classic student traditions like formal balls and pub crawls.
So no Quidditch, but plenty of chances to make new friends, explore your interests, and experience British culture beyond the classroom. Sounds like a win-win. But before we wrap up, part 2 of this epic UK deep dive, let's address the elephant in the room, safety. What should our listener be aware of in terms of staying safe in the UK, especially as a student in a new city?
That's an important question. The UK is generally a very safe country, but like anywhere, it's always wise to be aware of your surroundings and take sensible precautions, especially at night. Stick to well-lit and populated areas, and if possible, travel with friends, be mindful of your belongings, especially in crowded places, and if you're using public transport, try to avoid traveling alone late at night.
Okay, safety in numbers and a healthy dose of street smarts. But what about those moments when you just want to throw caution to the wind and embrace the adventure? Any recommendations for those spontaneous explorations our listeners should consider?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to get a little lost in your new city or town. Wander down those side streets, pop into those quirky shops, and strike up conversations with locals. You never know what hidden gems or unexpected connections you might find.
I love that. Embrace the unexpected chat with the locals and soak up every bit of British charm you can find. But before we get too carried away with spontaneous adventures, let's get practical again. We've talked about public transportation,
Yeah.
but what about the nitty-gritty of everyday life in the UK? How do you handle things like laundry, grocery shopping, finding those everyday essentials, the stuff that's not always covered in the glossy brochures?
Don't worry, everyday life in the UK isn't all that different from what you might be used to. Most student accommodations have laundry facilities, and for groceries, you'll find a wide range of supermarkets to choose from.
Okay.
For other essentials, head to the High Street, which is the main shopping area in most towns and cities.
Okay, so laundry, groceries, and everyday essentials, check. But what about those times when you need a little help navigating the system, like setting up a bank account or figuring out the healthcare system?
Your university will have student support services that can walk you through all of that. And remember, the internet is your friend. There are tons of online resources and forums where you can find answers to almost any question you might have.
University support services and the internet, a dynamic duo for surviving those first few weeks in a new country. But let's be honest, studying abroad isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. What are some must-do experiences for our listener who wants to make the most of their time in the UK, both academically and personally?
You're absolutely right. The UK is brimming with opportunities for growth and discovery both inside and outside the classroom. Soak up as much of it as you can, explore those ancient castles and cathedrals, hike through the stunning landscapes of the Lake District or the Scottish Highlands, immerse yourself in the vibrant energy of London or Edinburgh, and of course embrace the quintessential British experiences like afternoon tea, Sunday roasts, and maybe even a cheeky pub crawl or two.
I'm loving this, but before we get too carried away with all the amazing things our listener can do in the UK, let's circle back to the academic side of things. We've talked about the independent learning style, but what does that actually look like in the day-to-day reality of being a student in the UK? What should our listener expect in terms of lectures, seminars, assignments, and exams?
Well, it's important to remember that the UK system emphasizes depth over breadth. You'll typically focus on a smaller number of subjects in greater detail, with a lot of emphasis on independent research and critical analysis. Lectures are often used to introduce key concepts and spark discussion, while seminars provide a smaller, more interactive setting to delve deeper into the material.
So it's about engaging with the material on a deeper level, not just skimming the surface.
Exactly, and this is reflected in the types of assessments you'll encounter. You'll likely have a mix of essays, research projects, presentations, and exams, but even the exams tend to focus on applying your knowledge and critical thinking skills rather than simply regurgitating facts.
Okay, so be prepared to think critically, to analyze, to synthesize, and to articulate your ideas in a clear and concise way. Sounds like a great preparation for, well, pretty much anything you might want to do in life.
Absolutely, and remember, your professors are there to support you every step of the way.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to ask questions, seek clarification, and engage in discussions.
Okay, embrace the challenge, engage with the material, and don't be afraid to tap into those academic support resources. Got it. But let's not forget about the social side of university life. We've talked about clubs and societies, but what about those classic student traditions? I'm picturing formal balls, pub crawls, and maybe even a bit of harmless mischief involving statues and traffic cones.
You're not far off. Formal balls are definitely a thing, especially at the older universities, and they're a chance to dress up, dance, and enjoy a fancy meal. Pub crawls are also a popular pastime, and they're a great way to explore the local nightlife scene.
Pub crawls noted, but what about those rumors of pranks and rivalries between universities? Is it all in good fun, or should our listener be prepared for a full-on academic turf war?
It's mostly lighthearted rivalry, although some, like the one between Oxford and Cambridge, are taken quite seriously. But generally speaking, it's all a part of the fun and tradition of university life.
Okay, a bit of healthy competition, never hurt anyone. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the practicalities of living in the UK as a student. What are some essential life skills our listeners should master before heading across the pond?
Well, one of the most important things is to be prepared to adapt to a new way of doing things. Don't expect everything to be exactly like it is back home. Embrace the differences as part of the adventure.
Flexibility and a sense of humor are key. But what about more concrete skills?
Cooking is a valuable skill to have, especially if you're on a budget. British supermarkets have a great selection, and there are tons of online resources and cookbooks to help you whip up delicious meals at home.
So channel your inner Gordon Ramsay and get cooking. But what about those nights when you just don't have the energy to cook? What are the takeaway options like in the UK?
You'll find a huge range of takeaway options from the classic fish and chip shops to Indian, Chinese, Thai, and pretty much every other cuisine you can think of. And thanks to delivery services like Deliveroo and Uber Eats, it's easier than ever to get food delivered right to your door.
Takeaway and delivery perfect for those late night study sessions or those days when you just need a break from the kitchen. But what about getting around? I'm picturing those iconic red double-decker buses and the London Underground. Is it really as easy as it looks in the movies?
Public transportation in the UK is generally efficient and reliable, especially in big cities, but it can be a bit pricey, so it's worth looking into student discounts and travel passes, and if you're in London, mastering the tube map is an essential life skill.
Okay, conquer the tube map, but what about venturing beyond London? What are the best ways to explore the rest of the UK?
Trains are a great option for traveling between cities, but they can be expensive. Long-distance buses are a more budget-friendly alternative, and for those who are feeling adventurous, renting a car is a great way to explore the countryside at your own pace. Just remember they drive on the left side of the road in the UK.
Road trip through the UK countryside. I'm adding that to my bucket list, but let's not forget about those everyday tasks like laundry and grocery shopping. Are they drastically different from what we're used to?
Laundry is pretty straightforward, and most student accommodations have on-site facilities for groceries. You'll find everything you need at the major supermarkets, from budget-friendly options like Aldi and Lidl to more upscale chains like Waitrose and Marks and Spencer.
Okay, so grocery shopping sorted. But what about those times when you need something a bit more specific, like a replacement phone charger or a birthday card for a friend? Where do you go for those everyday essentials?
You'll find all sorts of shops on the high street, which is like the main shopping street in most towns and cities. And for bigger purchases, there are department stores like John Lewis and Debenhams.
High street for every day needs department stores for those bigger splurges. Got it. But what about those times when you need a little help with something like setting up a bank account or navigating the healthcare system? Who do you turn to for those practical matters?
Your university will have student support services to help with all of that. And don't forget about the power of online resources and forums. You can find answers to just about any question you might have.
University support and the internet, a powerful combination. But let's be real. Studying abroad is more than just academics and practicalities. It's about immersing yourself in a new culture and making memories that will last a lifetime.
What are some must-do experiences for our listener who wants to make the most of their time in the UK?
This is where the real adventure begins. The UK has something for everyone, no matter your interests. Explore those ancient castles and cathedrals, hike through the stunning scenery of the Lake District or the Scottish Highlands, experience the energy of cities like London, Manchester, or Edinburgh, and of course embrace those quintessential British experiences like afternoon tea, Sunday roasts, and maybe even a pub crawl or two.
Okay, so much to see and do, but any specific hidden gems we should reveal, those off-the-beaten-path places that most tourists miss?
For a truly unique experience, head to the Isle of Skye in Scotland. It's a land of dramatic landscapes, ancient myths, and charming villages.
Isle of Skye added to the list, but what about for our music-loving listener, any must-see concerts or festivals? The UK is a music lover's paradise, and there are festivals for every taste imaginable. Glastonbury is the legendary one, but there's also Reading and Leeds for rock, an indie music festival for electronic music, and tons of smaller festivals showcasing local talent.
So whether you're into headbanging or chilling to some mellow tunes, the UK festival scene has something for you. But let's be real, not every day can be a festival. What about those everyday moments of joy and discovery? Any quintessentially British experiences we should recommend?
We've already talked about tea breaks, but another British ritual worth embracing is the Sunday roast. It's a hearty meal that's often shared with family and friends, and it's a great way to experience British comfort food at its best.
Sunday roast check. But what about for our listener who's starting for something a bit more adventurous?
How about a bracing walk along the British coastline?
Okay.
The UK has some stunning coastal paths, and it's a fantastic way to clear your head and breathe in that fresh sea air.
Yeah. A coastal walk, perfect for those contemplative moments, or those days when you need to escape the city. But let's not forget about one crucial aspect of studying abroad: souvenirs. What are some uniquely British gifts our listener can take home for their loved ones?
You'll find tons of options from the classic tea towels and mugs to quirky gifts inspired by British pop culture. And for a truly special gift, consider a piece of handmade pottery or a woolen scarf from a local artisan.
Okay, so cheesy souvenirs and artisan crafts, check and check. But what about for those friends and family who are more into edible delights?
You can't go wrong with a tin of classic British biscuits or a jar of local honey. And for a truly decadent treat, bring back some handmade chocolates from a local chocolatier.
British biscuits and chocolates, the perfect way to sweeten the deal and share a taste of the UK with loved ones back home. But before we wrap up this epic deep dive, any final words of wisdom for our listener who's about to embark on this incredible journey?
You're about to embark on an adventure that will challenge you, inspire you, and transform you in ways you can't even imagine. Embrace the unknown, be open to new experiences, and don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
I love that. So to our listener, we say go forth, explore, learn, grow, and make the most of every moment in this amazing country.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. We're always here to cheer you on and celebrate your successes.
And on that note, we'll wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into studying in the UK. Join us for part 3, where we'll delve even deeper into the academic experience, explore some hidden cultural gems, and maybe even share a few tips on mastering that charming British accent. Okay, we're back for like the final part of our UK study adventure.
Part 3.
I feel like we've covered so much already, but I know there's still more to uncover, right?
Oh, yeah, there's always more to explore.
Always more.
Yeah.
So let's do this.
Let's do it.
We've talked a lot about the UK's unique learning style, but I want to really paint a picture of what it's actually like to be a student there. So imagine this. You're sitting in a lecture hall, maybe in a building that's like centuries old, surrounded by students from all over the world.
Yeah.
And the professor, maybe with that like classic tweed jacket and an accent that sounds like it's straight out of a movie, starts talking out a theory that just completely blows your mind.
It happens.
Okay, I'm already hooked. But what happens next? Is it all about like passively absorbing these brilliant lectures?
That's where the independent learning comes in.
Okay.
Lectures are just the starting point. You're expected to kind of dive deeper, read widely, do your own research, and come to your own conclusions.
So it's like the professor throws you a fascinating puzzle piece,
Yeah.
and then you have to go out and find all the other pieces, figure out how they fit together, and ultimately create your own masterpiece.
I like that analogy. That's a great way to put it.
It's about active learning, not passive absorption.
Exactly. You're developing critical thinking skills, evaluating different perspectives, and formulating your own arguments.
That sounds intense, but also incredibly exciting. But I have to ask, is there any support for those moments when you feel completely lost, in this sea of knowledge? What if you need like a life raft, academically speaking?
Don't worry, UK universities are really great at providing support. Your professors are there to guide you, and most universities have excellent academic support services like writing centers and tutoring programs.
Okay, so help is available if you need it.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about those lectures for a minute. Are they really as intense and like intellectually stimulating as they sound?
They can be,
Okay.
but that's part of what makes a UK education so special. You're being challenged to think critically, to engage with complex ideas, and to really push the boundaries of your understanding.
Putting on the brain workout, but what about the workload?
Yeah.
I've heard whispers of essays that rival War and Peace in length, and exams that could make even the most confident student break out in a cold sweat.
Well, the workload can be demanding. There's no denying that.
All right.
But it's all about time management and planning. And remember, those essays and exams are designed to assess your understanding, not to torture you.
Okay. Challenging, but fair. Got it.
Yeah.
But what about the grading system? How do you know if you're actually succeeding in this like intellectually rigorous environment?
The UK grading system might seem a bit different at first.
Okay.
It's based on a percentage scale, with 70% and above being a first-class honors degree, which is like the gold standard.
First class honors, that sounds prestigious, but what if you don't quite reach those academic heights?
Don't worry, there are other levels of achievement, but the main thing to remember is that a UK degree is highly valued worldwide regardless of the final grade.
So no matter what, a UK education is a great investment in your future. I like it, but let's be honest, grades aren't everything. What about the social side of university life? We've talked about clubs and societies, but are there any other uniquely British traditions or experiences that our listeners should be prepared for?
You'll definitely encounter some interesting traditions, especially at the older universities, things like formal balls, where you get to dress up and dance the night away, or even May balls, which are these extravagant celebrations that happen in Cambridge at the end of exam period.
Formal balls and May balls sounds fancy, but what about those rumors of like pranks and rivalries between universities? Should our listener be prepared for a full-on academic turf war?
It's mostly in good fun, although some rivalries, like the one between Oxford and Cambridge, run pretty deep. But generally speaking, it's a healthy competition that adds to the excitement of university life.
Okay, a bit of friendly competition never hurt anyone, but let's shift gears for a moment and talk about like surviving in a new city, particularly those first few weeks when everything feels so new and different. What are some like essential life skills our listeners should master before heading to the UK?
One of the most important things is to be adaptable and open to new experiences. Things might not work exactly the same way as they do back home, and that's okay. Embrace the differences and see it as part of the adventure.
Right, flexibility is key. But are there any practical skills that'll make this transition smoother?
Well, learning to decipher those British accents is pretty essential.
The accent.
It might sound like a joke, but it can be a real challenge at first, especially in regions with strong dialects.
Okay.
Be patient with yourself, and don't be afraid to ask people to repeat themselves.
Okay, so brush up on those British slang dictionaries.
Yeah.
But accent comprehension aside, what other life skills should we be packing in our metaphorical suitcase?
Cooking is always a valuable skill, especially if you're on a budget, and it's a great way to experience the local cuisine beyond the restaurants and takeaways.
Right, channel your inner Jamie Oliver and whip up some culinary masterpieces. But speaking of food, what about those nights when you just don't have the time or energy to cook? What are the takeaway options like in the UK?
Oh, you'll be spoiled for choice. The UK has a fantastic takeaway culture, with everything from the classic fish and chip shops to Indian, Chinese, Thai pizza places, you name it, they've probably got it. And with delivery services like Deliveroo and Uber Eats, it's never been easier to get your favorite food delivered right to your door.
Okay, so takeaway options are covered. But what about getting around? We've talked about public transportation, but are there any other tips for navigating the UK like a pro?
If you're planning on exploring beyond your university town or city, look into rail passes and bus discounts. And if you're feeling adventurous, renting a car is a great way to see the countryside at your own pace. Just remember, they drive on the left side of the road in the UK.
Left side driving, that's one adjustment I'll definitely need to practice.
Yeah.
But let's talk about those everyday essentials. Things like laundry, grocery shopping, Finding a toothbrush when yours inevitably goes missing, the little things that make life well.
Hmm. Don't worry, the UK is well equipped to handle all your everyday needs. Most student accommodations have laundry facilities, and you'll find a wide range of supermarkets for your grocery shopping. For those other essentials, head to the high street, which is like the main shopping area in most towns and cities. You'll find everything you need from pharmacies and bookstores to clothing shops and electronics stores.
Okay, so laundry, groceries, everyday essentials, check, check, check. But what about those times when you need a bit of extra help navigating the system? Like setting up a bank account, dealing with healthcare, or just figuring out how to pay your bills?
Your university will have student support services to guide you through all those practicalities. And don't underestimate the power of the internet. There are tons of resources and forums where you can find answers to almost any question you might have.
University support and the internet. The ultimate student survival toolkit. But let's not forget about the real reason we're here, the incredible experience of studying abroad. What are some absolute must-do experiences for our listener who wants to make the most of their time in the UK, both academically and personally?
The beauty of the UK is that there's something for everyone. Explore those ancient castles and cathedrals, hike through breathtaking landscapes like the Lake District or the Scottish Highlands, lose yourself in the vibrant energy of cities like London, Manchester, or Edinburgh, attend a football match, or rugby game, or even a cricket match if you're feeling adventurous.
Okay, history, nature, city life, sports. Check, 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 check. But any hidden gems you recommend? Those off-the-beaten-path places that most tourists never discover.
For a truly unique experience, I'd recommend the Isle of Skye in Scotland. It's a land of dramatic landscapes, ancient myths, and a wild, rugged beauty that will take your breath away.
Isle of Skye added to the list, but what about for our music-loving listener, any must-see concerts or festivals?
The UK is a music lover's paradise, from Glastonbury to Reading and Leeds Festival to smaller local festivals. There's something for every taste.
So much music to experience, but what about those quieter moments, those everyday joys that make up the fabric of life in the UK?
Embrace those simple pleasures. Have a pint in a cozy pub, take a walk along a windswept beach, enjoy a picnic in a beautiful park, strike up a conversation with a friendly local. These are the moments that will truly stay with you.
I love that soak up those everyday moments of British charm. But let's not forget about the souvenirs. What are some uniquely British gifts our listener can bring back for their loved ones?
Oh, there are so many options. You'll find everything from the classic tea towels and mugs to quirky gifts inspired by British pop culture. And for something truly special, look for handmade crafts from local artisans, pottery jewelry, woolen scarves. Those are always a hit.
Cheesy souvenirs and artisan crafts, the perfect combination. But what about for those friends and family members who are more into edible delights?
Well, you can't go wrong with a tin of classic British biscuits, a jar of local honey, or some delicious handmade chocolates from a local chocolatier.
Okay, British biscuits and chocolates, definitely adding those to my shopping list. But before we wrap up this epic deep dive, any final words of wisdom for our listener who's about to embark on this incredible adventure? What's the one thing you wish someone had told you before you studied abroad?
Be present. Soak up every moment. Embrace the challenges, the triumphs, the unexpected detours. This is a journey that will shape you in ways you can't even imagine. Say yes to every opportunity, even if it scares you a little. Make friends from all over the world, learn a new skill, explore a new place, and most importantly, have fun.
I love to be present, say yes, and have fun. What a perfect way to sum up the study abroad experience. So to our listener, we say go forth, explore, learn, grow, and make the most of every moment in this amazing country.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. We're always here to cheer you on and celebrate your successes.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into studying in the UK. We hope you found it helpful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
Until next time, happy exploring.